el modelo de negocio debe ser tener una base en los Estados Unidos. Y desde luego, vamos a hablar hoy con dos mujeres, bueno, maravillosas, que han apostado por tener su emprendimiento desde la ciudad de Miami, pero son emprendimientos que son globales. Y yo creo que ese es el modelo de negocio que cualquier pequeña o mediana empresa en Latinoamérica debería querer, porque la logística de crear productos en Latinoamérica para distribuirlos a los Estados Unidos o el resto del mundo es verdaderamente complicado, y de los Estados Unidos se facilita muchísimo más. Estoy hablando con dos mujeres increíbles, inteligentes, pioneras y visionarias además. La primera que voy a presentar es a María Cáceres Strauss. Ella tiene una marca que se llama JBQ, que yo diría que es serendipitous in a way, ¿no? Que pasó por casualidad y se convirtió en un emprendimiento global. Y también estoy con Patricia Ermecheo, que comenzó una labor social que se ha convertido en una empresa que sus productos han llegado a la estratosfera. Y si quieren saber por qué verdaderamente han llegado a la estratosfera, van a tener que esperar para conocer su historia. But I want to start with you, Maria, and I want to know how you started this business. Basically, I would say 7 years ago, and it really took you, of course, to a global phenomenon.
So you want to know how I started?
Yes, we want to know how you started. We want to know how you started your business in Miami and how it became literally international.
Well, I have to start from the very beginning. I was in charge of marketing for my family business, Mia Shoes, and I was doing all their marketing, etc. And I decided I was going to semi-retire when I turned 55. I was tired of working, and so.
If I may, excuse me one sec. Hi, girls. Hi, 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 hi. How are you? Could you please keep it a little quiet? Eva, I don't mean to be rude. Can you keep it a little quiet because it's hard to listen over there? Sorry. Thank you. ¿Pueden tomar la conversación un poquito más? No se escucha. Gracias.
Bravo, Rodner.
I'm sorry for the interruption. I just think it's a little bit hard to hear when you have all that noise going in the background. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so at the age of 55, so you're never too old to start, I decided I was going to semi-retire, and back then, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just wanted to get a little creative, have fun, do some things, and all these, jackets, like camel jackets were in style, and I came home one day and I said to my daughter, I can make those, so I went to the Army-Navy store and bought some used jackets, and with the intention of doing everything from now on upcycled or recycled, and that's how really I started doing these jackets. And I was out, we were out photo shoot for the shoes, and we used the jackets. And there's a store that was in Wynwood. I remember it was Boho Hunter and Lulu, and they both saw my jackets, and they both came out real quick and said, "Oh, where can we get those?" And I went like, "Oh, yeah, I can make those for you." And so I made a few, and from there, it just started. I started getting connected to some of the local ladies, like the influencers, like Gabriela Smith, who does, the Upcycle Project, and Danny Gomez. And so there were a lot of people that I met at that time, and I never thought I was going to get it to this point. I thought it's just going to be a local thing. Let's start locally. It's not a big deal. And then I figured, well, I can't just do jackets, and so I started working with African shiboris, like vintage African shiboris, and making special skirts and dresses, all one of a kind. So that was actually very successful, and I had like every boutique in Miami was calling me to get these because they were all one of a kind, and people liked it, and it was upcycled, and it was a new movement about sustainability and so forth and so on. That was back in 2017. So 2017, 2018, I was only doing upcycled, recycled, and it was all very local. Yeah, and then I had a phone call from a girl she's sitting right there. She was in New York, and she had, she calls me one day, I don't remember if she called or if she contacted me and said, do you have a rep? And I said, no. I said, I was actually, no, I have no reps. No, I'm just, doing my thing here. And she says, well, I mean, I think I want to work, you want to work together. And so she said, but, we have to do more than this because you have to figure out how to do something that's more commercial, because one of a kind isn't really commercial, right? So,
which is a point that I want to emphasize. One of the points in business, especially in fashion business, is to scale the business.
right.
If you want to make a profit and make a profitability out of your own brand, you have to pretty much branch out of your cocoon
Exactly.
and scale the business. How did you do that?
Well, it was kind of scary, because at the point I'm going, oh my God, all I know how to do is one of a kind. And it was all really art to wear. And I sold every last piece. I mean, I had to literally fight to keep a few pieces in my inventory just, for old time's sake. Yeah, for samples. So at that point, I thought, okay, what can I do that will be something I can reproduce, but still have that homemade type of thing. So yeah, so kind of individual. So I thought of, okay, we're in Miami, what can I do? And there were these, I always thought, when I go to the beach, like I can never find like something like a towel. I see everybody wrapping a towel around their waist or around here. So I thought, why don't I make a beach skirt out of a towel? So I started buying Turkish peshtimals, and I turned them into skirts. And that was the birth of the Tulum skirt, which actually went viral, and what put us on the face of the fashion market. Yeah. So
Sounds like you were destined to this.
Huh?
It sounds like you were destined to this to
It was
happen.
so weird, And so we went to New York for the first time in February of 19. And so that was really when the business really started, like the business where it expanded into something that was more commercial and more successful as a brand. So, but I went to New York with maybe 3 styles, and like people from Bergdorf Goodman were coming in. The guy says, honey, you need to have a collection. You can't just come in here with 3 pieces. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, whatever. But you know what? We got some really great orders that first show. We got an order from Shop Up, and we had the people from Intermix at the time come in. And so we had a lot of interest, and little by little, we started growing little by little. And the idea was, okay, I'm in Miami. I've been working with 2 seamstresses that have been doing all this for me, and all of a sudden I'm getting these big orders. So where do I go from here? I had never been in the manufacturing business, and so I just started word of mouth talking to seamstresses, and I thought, okay, we've got to do this. And Rosanna Fiedler, who was my rep, said to me, look, I can get you the orders, but are you going to be able to produce it? I go, you know what? You go out and get the orders. I'll figure it out, So little by little, we started with this was in the garage, of the upstairs over my garage in my home. It went from, in 1 year, went from 2 seamstresses to 15. And I had a lot of them working from home. So it was kind of very serendipitous, because I never expected it to grow that quickly.
That's very clever that they were working from their home. So she
Yes.
didn't want for a
But
place.
I feel that most businesses, especially in fashion, they do start at home.
Yeah.
And you have to be very smart to, in my opinion, manage your budget in a way that's efficient, because the fashion business is completely romanticized, but it's a very expensive business.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I grew very quickly, and thank God that I had the support from my husband and our time in the industry to support me along the way, because when we got so big, we had to literally move, and as of now, we have 50 employees, and all in Miami. All the manufacturing is done in Miami. So
That's amazing.
We do everything from the conceptualization to the sewing, to the packaging and labeling and shipping, all from our Miami base.
And that is literally amazing, because
Yeah.
most people would source out of Asia because it's
Or Central
cheaper,
America.
Right.
more efficient. It is complicated when it comes to shipping, but I feel that if you do everything in Miami, then you have complete control over your product.
We have complete control, and I've had a really hard time. I've been advised to go and produce in Colombia. You know, you go to Barranquilla, it's a free zone. Why don't we go there? It's just my fear of losing control. So in a way, I can turn around product very quickly. Now, you know that 2019, 2020 was COVID. And, you know, a lot of people were struggling to get product in from Asia, and we were able to keep producing. Yeah. So that really helped me, and that was some of my most successful time was during COVID, believe it or not.
You have product.
I had product, and we couldn't make it fast enough. It was just going. People were calling me and telling me, people from Chicago, accounts from Chicago that we had opened, would be calling my daughter saying, you know, send me whatever you have. What do you have? Well, we only have medium and small. Send it. It doesn't matter. What colors? Doesn't matter. Just send it.
So at this point, they were not working at home. You had a place. So.
No, they were still working at home at this point.
So it was even better.
Yeah, I didn't move into a place.
Nobody had to.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
I had to move into a place.
We're getting to know each other this morning.
In 21.
100%.
We're both like next to each other.
I know.
Met.
She's in Miami, and I was saying, like, I can't believe, because she, you know, your business is so in tune with mine.
I know.
And that we didn't know each other was kind of.
What are you saying?
But
Yeah.
I have a question. that
That's
really.
the thing. That's the disconnection in Miami. That's so weird.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I have the same question for both of you. But I
Yeah.
wanna hear first from you, because there's gotta be a downfall or a quote unquote negative side out of producing and manufacturing out of Miami.
Yes.
What are the pros and the cons of producing locally?
Okay. The pros is obviously the control factor.
Yes,
you know, you
agree.
know what you're doing, you're watching it, you're watching your production from A to Z, you catch mistakes along the way. You can produce small batches where, like, if you're producing overseas,
Minimums.
you have to place large orders. Now, that's the pro. The con is you're paying a lot of higher prices. So all of that is, you know, nowadays with shipping out of Asia, because that's where we get most of our textiles, come from Asia, Turkey, Italy. When we go to the fabric shows, the textile shows, we always try to, 90% of the things that we purchase are recyclable materials.
Right.
So even if we use poly, it's recycled.
Right.
Not that it's great anyway, but it's better than nothing. So we do our part. You know, we try and maintain that. The moral behind my brand was always to be ethical and sustainable.
Which is part of the DNA of your brand, basically. Now, Patricia, you started a business that's unique.
Yeah.
It has a
To say the
purpose,
least. To say
and
the
it
least.
has taken you to the moon, basically.
No, I know.
If you will, please explain people what your business is about and how you started OSOMTEX.
Right. Good morning, everybody. Well, I decided to start a factory first to recycle clothing waste into fiber and yarn. So when I'm not going to go ahead and tell you everything I went through to create that, but when that happened, I found myself with a spool of yarn, very boring, and said, how am I going to sell this idea, this thing, this solution? So I came up with the Osom brand socks. That was, and that's why I'm like, you were at Boho and I was a nomad tribe. We were like next to each other. The thing is, like, your things were like more designer, kind of cool. Mine was more recycled, socks, more like nomad tribe kind of thing. So we both kind of started at the same thing. We were both at the design district. So I'm like, wow, that's incredible. I started my journey in Central America first and put in my first factory there, got the whole concept, the whole idea, the socks manufactured in Central America. I didn't want to have to do anything with Asia. So I decided I was actually, I thought Miami, and that's one of the reasons why I think Miami it's a great place to start a business, because for me the supply chain goes, between Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and Europe. So it's very close. I think it's very centric. I grew up in Venezuela, and with a certain level of paranoia, of wanting to be or feel protected by the law, by the everyday. I'm a woman, so I wanted to have like a factory here and feel like nothing is going to happen, to us. So for me, it made it, Miami was my second home anyways from living in Venezuela before. I had family here all my life. So I decided to go ahead and be crazy and open the first textile recycling facility.
Be brave, not crazy. Brave.
Crazy and brave. And open the first textile recycling facility in the history of the state. So
if I may, so that you understand, her product caught the attention of Nike.
Right.
And Nike uses her product made out of Miami to produce shoes, sneakers.
Yeah.
And her textiles have gone into NASA,
Right.
and they've been shipped out in space.
Right.
And that all grew out of Miami. Just as her product is in 180 boutiques around the world, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a possibility of growing your business out of Miami, whether it's more expensive or not.
Yes.
But you are a US-based product
Yes.
that has international appeal.
Yeah.
So how did Nike approach you? How did you get to that
I
point?
launched the socks on Kickstarter. So by launching the socks at Kickstarter, you get a lot of exposure through that, and I got an email, and I thought it was fake, completely scam. I was like, scam, looking like the extra E or the extra dot or the dot, I don't know, somewhere China, everywhere. No, but it was real. So it was very fast. I went to Oregon to meet with them in person, and they loved the material. They told me that was exactly the story they wanted to tell, and the material they needed for their next sustainability collection for shoes. So we created the Space Hippie shoes at Nike, and it has been the most successful collection for Nike in sustainability in the history of the brand. So they use that. Yeah. So my crazy material and story, and so the moment. So I spent from 2017 until 2020 in Oregon and working at Nike. I had an exclusivity deal with them until 2021. So I had to be really silent and out of the attention of anyone else. So that's why when everybody's like, where were you? Where have you been? Well, I was on a pretty very strict deal with Nike. So after that, when COVID came, I found myself in Oregon and headquarters closed. And I'm like, this cannot stop right here. And I was at the time actually making the material in Central America in my first factory. So I just said, and I noticed the whole supply chain disruption, the China thing or what. I was actually shipping the yarns for Nike to Asia. So yes, I was working with Asia, but I was like, this is going to be a big problem, and shipping is going to be very expensive from moving forward from this pandemic. So I'm like, production is going to become more possible when it's done locally. So like when designers work in Colombia and they make their own things and they actually sell it, in Central America and Colombia, I thought, why not doing the same thing in the States? Why we have to be all the time buying things from other countries and depending on other countries with factories in other places? I'm going to go ahead, go to Miami, put my factory there, and that's going to be like the biggest marketing campaign I have ever going to do, because who the hell is so crazy to open a textile recycling facility in Miami?
You.
I am. Yes, and yes, the pros and cons of it's very expensive. Very expensive. It makes your product less, a lot, it's difficult. It's difficult to be competitive in comparison, But thank God, after 3 years of crunching numbers and making the factory super efficient, we finally are competitive, and we are working with huge manufacturers and brands. And I mean, it can be done. I almost died in the process, but
I feel that from listening to you two, producing out of Miami takes courage,
yes,
a leap of faith,
yeah.
and there's gotta be a financial backer behind you to support that kind of entrepreneurship in Miami. Did you get finance? Because I hear from you that your husband supported your business out of the one you already had with the shoes.
Yes. If I didn't have that, I don't think we would have been able. Oh, if I didn't have that, sorry. If I didn't have that, I don't think we would have been able to do
Support.
it. I mean, I didn't need it at first, but eventually, when the bigger you get, the cash flow starts to be a problem. At some points, everybody can relate to that.
It's a struggle, but it's going to be a struggle
It's
anywhere.
a struggle. It's
Anywhere.
a struggle, and one of the biggest struggles being in Miami is that you don't have the resources here either that they have, for example, in California or in New York. Like back in 1960, we were like the third largest manufacturing city in the United States. That kind of died, went away, and it's still New York and LA. But there aren't a lot of workers here, so you don't find a lot of talent, right? So you really have to struggle through, teach people. I have like 5 seamstresses that we've literally trained to sew. I mean, they knew how to sew. Obviously, they came with basic skills. But you have those challenges here in Miami, right? We don't have the same resources. You're in New York and you're producing and you need buttons. You just go out in the garment district and you get the buttons. Here, you have to pre-plan. You have to, right? You have to really plan everything ahead.
Well, that's why it took, in my case, I had to train my people in the factory how to use the machine that I created, to recycle the clothing. Like they came from working at factories, but they have never worked with this before, and they didn't know either what was the quality of the fiber that I was trying to get out of the clothing. So it took us like 2 years of training, and this is 2 years of rent that it's crazy expensive, that it's meant to be for a product that should be ready already. Otherwise, you're like burning money.
How many I've been to our factory, and it's impressive, and the machinery is just unbelievable, but it's a huge facility.
40,000 square feet.
And if I may, and you don't have to answer,
$25,000.
how much is the rent?
Month.
25,000?
Yeah.
It is expensive.
Yeah.
Quite. However, I feel that you two are spearheading a movement to produce in Miami, and hence more people in the business are going to start maybe following your path. Do you feel like that or not?
Okay,
Yes
so,
and no.
Miami's become like the hub for Latin American fashion, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people here that start businesses produce, I know a lot of local designers, but none of them produce in Miami. Wake up call, here comes Trump. We don't know really what's going to happen with Chinese imports. We don't know what kind of tariffs are going to be imposed. So it's going to make it more of an even playing field. So it might be a little easier because the biggest challenge is pricing. I've been able to overcome that because I've concentrated on quality.
Yeah.
So we're much higher end. We produce high-end product. So in doing so, the prices are okay,
manageable,
right? And they make sense, right? It's not like we're overpriced. We are actually able to compete, and we sit along a lot of other designers, such as Jonathan Simkai and that kind of level. It's not obviously not the designer, but not fast fashion by any means. This is not fast fashion at all.
No, not at all.
So yeah, but as far as Miami and the prices that we pay,
Or
I mean,
also for wedges, in my case, I have to hire like professionals,
Right.
mechanics, electricians,
engineers.
but engineers that I have, 100% of the time there.
yeah, I mean,
So-
I have people like that too. I
Yeah.
have engineers and
So
designers and
That's very different from hiring that kind of talent in Central America. So you have to have like a certain. I can tell it's like we have like the same kind of feelings. It's like a love for doing things right, which not everybody's passionate about things right. They care more about how much are they going to make than doing the thing, the right thing.
And I
So-
love that you say that.
Yes.
Because many people in the industry, and I understand it, I'm an entrepreneur as well, you want to make money. But sometimes if you don't compromise your principles, you can do the right
Values.
thing. And there's a saying in Spanish that goes, el que pega primero pega dos veces. And you too have started a business out of Miami that, like you said, maybe with the new tariff on Asia, maybe people are going to start looking into producing locally, which would be great.
For sure.
But I have to ask you, does the local government help you in any way? Do they have any kind of program to help local designers to produce locally?
We got the keys of the city, you know that. Daniela Levin Cava, the mayor, gave us the keys of the city of Miami and the county. And we started a program for collecting their uniforms and trying to make Miami circular in the sense of that we can actually get those uniforms, that clothing from the employees, make fiber out of that, make yarn, and then make more uniforms for the city. So it's, but it is a challenge. They have been supportive, for sure, but it is still on you to do the work. They gave me the keys. The keys don't open any safe to any bank. I tried. I tried the key. So
the key doesn't work.
I'm like,
Now, let me ask you, is there anybody in the audience who's a designer? Okay. If I may, where do you produce? You don't produce? Not yet. But you're, okay.
She's
Are you
gonna-
based?
She will in the future.
Yeah. Are you Miami based? Okay. Would you, after listening to their story, would you consider producing locally in Miami? Do you have any mic? Sorry. Okay. I wanna gather what you gather from this talk. So would you produce out of Miami?
I mean, I love the fact that you have control, that I can relate to. But I'm from Colombia, so I think Miami as a hub to the world is a big thing, rather than just producing and being small in Colombia and then becoming bigger. I can relate to this 100%, like maybe starting here small and looking more to the world. That would be like not as, it would have more cost, but I think if you have the vision of being more international, I guess you can do it this way. And I can relate 100% more with this like vision or model than the ones we spoke before.
you have
That's
a lot
my
of
personal.
you have a lot of exposure here.
Exactly.
So if you're thinking on a global, that's what I said. It was a marketing campaign because the most expensive one,
yeah, and the
But
fact of
it's
being
worth it.
safe, like the
Everybody
fact
wants
of,
to come to Miami for a week, and they say to their boss, "Oh, the factory is in Miami. I have to go in person." No, I can't do Zoom. So
Yeah.
so they all come here, and I knew that because I work with people that live in places in the world that the weather is horrible. So they all want to come here. So we have had, and you'll see what we got for next year. You guys is incredible, and that is just because we were here in Miami. So huge opportunity that you'll see 2025, I can't talk about it, but you're gonna
Do
flip.
not.
Do not.
I mean, we have Amazon almost coming here. I mean, we were like this close to getting that kind of investment in Miami. But I want to ask you, Maria, before we finish, we have 5 minutes left, so you know. As far as volume, how many units do you produce out of your factory in Miami monthly?
I can tell you by season.
By season, yeah.
Like we do anywhere from 10 to 15,000 units,
It's a lot.
and we ship worldwide.
Have you ever, out of curiosity, like do the research to find out how much would it be to produce out of Asia instead of
Yes.
Miami? And
Yeah.
the difference?
Yeah, there's a big difference, but there's also a difference in that you have to, you lose control. So you have to start a lot sooner in the cycle to produce. You have to get things out to. We are working with one factory as a test to see. This was our first season where we actually had some things made overseas, and it worked, but I'm still like a little bit hesitant because I don't know if they're going to be able to deliver on time. And if you don't deliver on time, it's a problem.
And if you have compromises, right, with the buyers.
always say the first thing, I always say, you've got to be the first one in because it's your first one
Yes.
out to sell.
Yeah.
You know how long
Is detrimental to the business.
Yeah.
I've been saying that always from the day one.
Yeah.
First one in and the first one out because she wants the new piece. What's
Absolutely.
new, and she goes in October. This depends of
that
the season.
itself creates a level of stress that
Yes.
you don't want in your life. You have to
Well,
think about.
you have to take it one
that
day
is
at a
another
time.
factor that that
so
nobody
that-
takes into account, but it's a big factor. It's going to take your
100%.
life.
And so that you understand, when you produce out of Asia, you have to be 9 months ahead of your season.
Yeah.
So you
And
have
that's
to
hard.
deliver everything that you want 9 months in advance. Mind you, you're gonna get your first samples, then check the samples,
Yeah.
then send it back to Asia, have them redo it, then send those samples back, then making sure they're fine as you wanted them. All that headache, you don't have it.
No, listen. Let me just finish by telling you that business, like starting a business in Miami, especially a fashion business, is really not as difficult as it sounds, and it's not as difficult. It's not as complicated, right? Remember that back in the remember with the Versace times? I mean, we've had a lot of evolution ever since. You know, the cultural, the fashion. We've come a long way. If you want exposure, like to the new designers, if you really want exposure, it's better if you start here, start small. Then you can take your production to Colombia. But where you're really going to get exposure is by the local market, because people come to Miami to experience Miami fashion. Ashley Brozick is an author, and she's just her book is coming out in December, and it's the little book of fashion from Miami. You know, there's a little book of fashion Paris, but she was commissioned to do the one for Miami, and she talks about the history of fashion in Miami and where we are right now. We've come a long way. Everyone that comes to Miami has destinations. Having Latin American Fashion Summit here, I think it's a great step because it shows you that there is so much here. There are so many people wanting to come here. Of course, people would rather come here than, to a lot of other places, especially if you're from Latin America.
California is so far away.
Exactly, it's so far away. So this is really a hub. It's a great hub. There's a lot of great multi-brand stores like Curio. It's like #1 shopping destination. So if you're showing here, if you're showing your fashion here, that's like a place that everybody goes to. And there's Fashion Week and there's Swim Week. So there's so much potential. Obviously, swimwear has always been our #1, but I think it's heading more into fashion in general because of the cultural events. Art Basel, we're going to be involved with an installation of Andy Warhol, never seen before sketches of Andy Warhol in December at Art Miami. So it's so exciting because we've been asked to create a look based on these sketches to display at Art Miami. So
Amazing.
they're mending fashion with art, and it's so much fun. It's you know, I was telling you before, I'm not very social, so I'm like not in the social scene.
Same.
I'm always working, and so are you.
Same.
We're so busy working that we don't have time for that, but being involved in these artsy
No,
exhibits
I think to your point, producing out of Miami is gonna give you a lot of exposure, presence, opportunities that most likely you're not gonna be able to have in your own country. So being here does make sense if you have that in mind. And with that, we have to close. But I want to thank you because I feel that you're writing the new page on the history of Miami fashion, and you two are pioneers. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, girls. Thank you.